Landlords are sick of all the new laws, rules, and regulations and are switching to Airbnb. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the fact that landlords are switching to Airbnb, short-term rentals, because they are sick of all of the, rules and regulations that they have to face in order to do business as a long-term landlord, especially in places like, California and New York, etc. So the article I have is it's an article coming out of Canada, but it definitely still applies here in the US, okay? We see all of the new things they're passing, rent control laws, good cause eviction, etc. And it's making it a nightmare just to operate your business. And I can't say that I blame any landlord who says, hey, this is a much more profitable way. We don't have to follow all of the ridiculous rules that are put in place. And, we basically are able to maintain our business and maybe in some cases make even more than they were as a long-term landlord. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? If you're a landlord in a place and you're sick of all the rules and regulations, have you considered turning your rental into an Airbnb? Or do you already have Airbnbs just for this specific reason, okay? I'm just curious. Now, I just got my very first Airbnb rental. I haven't even, gotten it up on the platform yet because, I'm working out the management issues and such right now. And, I'm just seeing if it's a viable option, especially as a long distance landlord. So I'm just kind of curious what other people are doing right now. So this article is coming from RemyNetwork.com, and it says, growing number of small landlords switching to Airbnb. And like I said, this article, it is coming out of Canada, but it has a lot to do with things that are going on here in the U.S. as well. A growing number of small independent Canadian landlords are taking their properties off the rental market, according to new research from property tech firm Single Key. Driven by problematic tenants, defaults on payments, and a slow, protracted eviction process, dissatisfied rental housing providers are leaving the rental market in favor of alternative property income solutions like Airbnb. We're already seeing pressure on the market with rental fees skyrocketing across the country, and now we're increasingly seeing landlords shy away from long-term rentals rather than absorb the risks associated with a bad tenant, said Viler Lika, CEO and founder of Single Key. Additionally, with interest rates rising rapidly to combat inflation, many would-be buyers are being priced out of the market, forcing them to rent rather than buy, meaning demand for rental units is only going to escalate at the same time that inventory is waning. So it sounds like a lot of the same issues that are in California and New York and other places, that are very landlord friendly, right, or anti-landlord, very tenant friendly, are what's going on in Canada right now. So, they're talking about how they have a slow, protracted eviction process. That's, we're talking about California right there specifically, but, those other states as well, okay? And, defaults on rental payments, problematic tenants, etc. It is the exact same problem. So don't be fooled by the fact that this article is coming out of Canada, okay? And they're facing rising interest rates as well. So in order to make a profit, landlords have to look at all of the options available. Now, some people, they're going to get completely out of the rental business, okay? They're just going to say, you know what, this isn't worth it. We're going to sell our properties to owner occupants. We're going to get out. But other people are like, hey, there still are ways to make money. And that is through this, short-term rental thing, okay? And there is really, really good money to be made there. And, I've heard all of the stories. Now, it is more management intensive than just doing a regular long-term rental, and that is one of the negatives of it. But if you are up for the challenge, I'm sure that it's a great way to, keep a real estate investment business going. So yeah, I don't blame anybody for wanting to, just get out of all of the ridiculous pro-tenant rules. Now, yeah, if I lived in a place like California, that would probably be the only way I would invest, other than maybe like in industrial or commercial real estate. Single Key surveyed 200 Canadian landlords in the first week of July and found that 29% have opted to leave their units vacant rather than risk being stuck with a bad tenant. 27% indicated they'd had experience with tenants defaulting on their rent. Meanwhile, 2/3, 66%, said they would rather list their units on Airbnb despite the additional work involved if it meant not being saddled with a delinquent tenant. The issue is that the eviction process in many jurisdictions is extremely protracted and complex, causing significant delays for landlords with valid justification for evicting a tenant, said Lika. There are mandatory waiting periods before the process can even start, months of income lost while navigating the legal process, plus additional court and sheriff fees. Ultimately, it costs between $6,000 and $8,000 on average to evict a tenant. And in Ontario, that cost can be double. Yeah, and that's why, like I said, in many cases, landlords are more willing to pay the tenants to leave than they are to go through the eviction process. It is cheaper rather than losing, who knows how many months of rent, and maybe still not even being able to get the tenant up out of there. Okay, so yeah, in a lot of cases, landlords in these very left-leaning, progressive coastal places are paying the tenants to get the heck out of their units. And these problems where you aren't allowed to evict the tenant, right? Even when the tenant has no justification to stay, that is a huge issue. And governments and bureaucrats, they just never even thought for 1 second that, hey, maybe the tenant is a bad person who is trying to scam and cheat, and we need to have some sort of protections in there for property owners, for landlords, to make sure that this tenant doesn't get a free ride and leave the landlord with a gigantic bill. But they didn't. The bleeding hearts is what I call them, right? They are blinded by, their vision of this perfect world where everything works right, but they take for granted the fact that, hey, the landlords are the ones who are providing this housing, and they need to be able to maintain the housing in order so that people have a nice place to live, but they can't do that if you have ridiculous rent control laws, or if you have tenants that can't be evicted and refuse to pay rent or trash your property or whatever. Okay, so yeah, this is the exact same problems that are happening all over the U.S. as well. And the way I see Canada is that it's very similar to the issues that go on in California. They put these socialist policies in place, and they were thinking, oh yeah, this is going to work out great. The only problem is that in the real world, this stuff doesn't work. Okay, artificial price controls don't work. Giving somebody something for nothing doesn't work, and then it just creates a sense of entitlement within these tenants. The upside is that bad tenants are not the majority. According to the survey, 63% of landlords are very happy with their tenants. For the remaining 37%, Single Key offers a free eviction calculator to help landlords determine what to expect in a case of an eviction, as well as background checks and rent collection services. So I guess the Single Key thing is, this is kind of a quasi advertisement, but the important information in that last paragraph is that 63% of landlords are very happy with their tenants, right? That is a huge number of landlords who are not happy with their tenants. That's nearly 40% who are not happy. And what is their recourse? They have to go through this very slow eviction process and hope that maybe they can get that tenant out of there in some reasonable amount of time. Well, it's not going to happen in so many cases. So that's why I say, even if you're in Canada, my suggestion to you, invest in the U.S. in a very landlord-friendly state. Maybe in the South, maybe in the Midwest. Those are the two places in the U.S. with the best, best laws that favor landlords the most, right? And just don't even waste your time trying to invest in a place like Ontario or California or New York. Go somewhere where you're treated better, where you still have property rights, and face the fact that, hey, the government is not on your side.